All right. All right. All right. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone's having a fantastic evening. Oh my god. What the hell? All right. Welcome. What the hell? Welcome in. Okay. All right. Uh, we're going to get started momentarily once my co host gets here. We will be continuing our reading of Conjure Codex, Volume 1, is what we're going to be diving into. Conjure Codex, Volume 1, which is this text right here. But don't worry, we also have it on screen. So while we have this physical copy to, peruse through if we want to, we do have the PDF that we can utilize as well. One second here. All right. Sorry. So yes, we will be diving into this tonight, the PDF copy. So thank you all for wow. This is insane. Hey Issa, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. We may actually need moderation services today. We got a number in here, so that's that's good. We haven't even gotten started. Um, but yes, this is what we're going to be diving into this evening. So welcome to episode 4 of our Conjure Codex reading or series, I should say, because the plan is to go through all 5 of them. The plan is to go through all 5, with Issa and myself starting our new text in the next week or two. All right. You know me, I don't play exactly, and that's what we need. That's what we are going to need. We're waiting for Venom to hop in, and then once our co-host Venom hops in here, we will get started with the text. Welcome in, welcome in. I want to start reading um, Masonic texts. For some reason, I've been feeling the call to read Masonry texts. I think I might do that like exclusively on um, uh, school. I think I might do that exclusively on school. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I've been feeling the desire, and I've got quite a few Masonic texts. Where are they? Here we go. I've got quite a bit here that we could go through. Um, let's see. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6. So I've got a little over 30 Masonic texts here. All right, sorry. My friend keeps texting me. Yeah, we've got about 34. I don't feel like correcting my math. So about 30, 33, 34 different Masonic texts here that we could dive into. Some are more modern than others, but yeah, I think that might be something to do over on school, and maybe not live. Maybe I'll so that way I could do it, not portrait. I could do it in landscape, and so I could fit the full text in there. I don't have to move things around, and like a regular YouTube video. So, I'm just not sure which one. I've been looking at the Magical Mason. This one here. Oh, it opened up over here. My bad. By R.A. Gilbert, who's friends with Josephine McCarthy. The Magical Mason, Forgotten Hermetic Writings of William Wynne Westcott, Physician and Magus. He was one of the founders of The Golden Dawn. And this was published in 1983. Let's see here. Yeah. Table of contents. Looks pretty interesting. This might be a school thing that we dive into. Wait, what was part 2? I didn't even see what part 2. Oh, Kabbalistic. Okay. I thought this was all just one big part. Part 2, Kabbalistic. Part 3, Divination. The history of astrology, dreams, divination and its history, the star lore of the Bible. This is an interesting chapter. And it actually disproves. I remember using this to disprove Micah Dank, which he admitted live on the air on YouTube when I brought it to his attention, because he likes to do that astrotheology, I think is what he calls it, where he uses astrology to explain the stories in the Bible, and the 12 disciples and Jesus and all that other stuff, and it's a total misunderstanding, and it was this chapter that I used to disprove him, and he admitted live on the air that his astrotheology only works under Western astrology. It goes moot under any other astrological system. So yeah, that was an interesting time. And then the Masonic chapters, and then the miscellaneous papers. So yeah, this might be something we do on school. All right, I don't see Venom in here yet. Let me send him a message actually. Let's see here. Okay, go away. All right, let's see. All right. All right, he's coming in now. He's coming in now. All right, Venom will be joining us momentarily. Good thing I messaged him. All right, so let me close out of this and let's get to our reading. This text here. Yeah, you can see why I would like to just do this landscape. But I know that for TikTok, that's not the best option. But yeah, there's like no way I can fit everything. I think we're actually almost done this chapter. Let's see, we're on, or this chapter. the preliminaria, which is the ritual, the evocation, and then I think that's it, right? Yeah, that's it. And then it'll go to this chapter, the Comte de Gabalis. I don't know if we're gonna read this. So TikTok would be so cool if they gave the studio a bit more freedom. Yeah, I mean, I could switch it over to landscape mode, but but TikTok isn't optimized for that, right? So, like, I don't want people to get weirded out when they're scrolling through and everyone else is portrait, and then they get to me and it's like flipped over landscape, and they're like, "Whoa." Yeah, so that's why I just keep it portrait, and only do YouTube videos and like in regular landscape. I'm here. Just give me a moment. No worries, bro. No worries. Um, I'll actually get started. I'll get started with the reading, and then whenever you're ready to join, you can just send in a request, so that way we don't lose any time in the reading. So I'll just go ahead and get started, and when you're ready, come on up. All right, guys. So we are in Conjure Codex Volume 1. For those of you who may not be aware, that is this text here, Conjure Codex Volume 1, a compendium of invocation, evocation, and conjuration, with contributions from a various number of well-known occult authors and practitioners. You may be familiar with some of these people, maybe not all of them, but you should be familiar with some of these people. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are here on the page on this side, preparation. All right, hold on. Sorry, my sister-in-law is sending me something about my niece, so I have to respond to this. Okay. All right. So, preparation. And for people who may not be aware, so this is talking about the modernized form of contacting spirits, angels, demons, elementals. I think in this case he's only referencing angels and demons, but this is Michael Cittitelli's chapter on how to contact angels and demons with a modern flavoring. Okay, but still sticking to the grimoire tradition. So, preparation. Let the magus be purified inside and, I'm guessing, out. It doesn't really say on my side. The copier, I guess, didn't get those words. On the day of the working and fasting, by fasting and, I don't know, having no intake of food on the day of the working, save for water to slake his thirst. So, purification when it comes to internally, right? I mean, physically, internally, not spiritually. Fasting with no food, only water, on the day of the working. Step 2, if the evocation be of a spirit whose planetary nature is known, such as in the case of the ancient gods and goddesses, the, I guess, rite is to be performed on the appropriate, we're going to scroll up here, day. We're over here now on this side. Not that side, this side. On the appropriate day. If the nature of the spirit is not known, let the day be of the planet most suitable for the intent of his rite. Before the commencement of the rite, let the magus bathe in the usual manner, washing with hyssop and soap. Before entering the temple, the magus should anoint himself with the oil of abramelin. It doesn't have to be abramelin oil. It can be really any type of blessed oil, but common ones are abramelin oil, lotus oil, ancestor oil, stuff like that. Holy water, if you agree with that sort of way of working. Those sorts of things is what you're going to want to use. It doesn't have to be abramelin oil, but if you have abramelin oil, why, unless you want to use something else, abramelin oil is fine. The temple. The temple should be lit only by white candles, and should be fumigated by incense appropriate to the planet of the day, right? So this is important because the planetary influence that is over this spirit is what's going to give you that extra oomph, right? Rather than you just calling the spirit of your own volition. Or alternatively, the incense taught to be used as a general offering, such as frankincense, myrrh, I like Dittany of Crete, etc. Whenever you're ready, Venom, you can send a request. Sufficient incense is to be used that it will not burn out before the culmination of the rite, although it matters not whether it be of resin, cone, stick, or powder. I use either resin or cone. I don't like stick. And powder and I can never seem to really figure it out. So, welcome in, brother. Welcome in.
Thanks, man.
Nice, nice. A circle should be defined on the floor of the temple, unadorned, and with naught but the magus inside, not to protect him from the spirit, for no such circle will bar the entry of such a one anyway. That's not true. But to establish his place in the universe, that's part of it. The circle should ideally be of natron, whether natural or man-made. The magus is to be clothed in perfectly clean garments, both white and new are preferred, but it matters not if it be a robe, pants, and a shirt, or what have you, save that they be clean and free of odor, such as perfumes and detergents. So you're going to want to have a magic circle laid out on the ground. This says unadorned. What that means is it's not elaborate. It is a simple geometric circle. There's no sacred names of God. There's no symbols of God or the angels or anything like that, or of any sort of cosmological being. It's simply a magic circle, and in this case, made of that white powder I used to show all the time, natron. It doesn't have to be this way. You can certainly, physically mark it on the ground with a ritual knife or a stave. Or a sword, or your staff, or your wand, or something if it's sturdy enough, something along those lines. You can physically, in the dirt or something, draw out your circle. You can adorn it if you want, but that would leave you limited to the spirits that would respond to whatever you have adorned on the circle. But in this case, it's best to leave it unadorned. And also, the clothing that you're going to wear should be plain, white, and unadorned. So clean, free of odors, detergents, anything like that. Although no tools or materials are necessary for the present work, and the magus will do as well with naught but his hand, he may, if it suits his will, hold a wand or a book which to him is holy and powerful. At no time should he hold or have near a dagger or blade. And then we have the preliminaria. Let the ceremony be opened as follows. So this is going to be the preliminary ritual, the opening ritual to begin the working. So you're going to face east, and you're going to stretch out your right and left hands to the left. And you're going to chant Ah, as in, or which is alpha, but Ah as in father. So Ah. And you're going to chant that. After a few moments of doing that, then you're going to face north and put your hand and put forward your right fist, chanting Epsilon. Eh. After a few moments of doing that, you're going to face west. You're going to extend both hands forward, and you're going to chant Eta, or Eta, however you want to say that, as in the French word for head, or tête. Eh. After a few moments of doing that, you're going to face south, both hands holding the stomach, and you're going to chant I, as in iota, or E. Then you're going to face east. You're going to touch the end of your toes, and you're going to chant Omicron, or Ah. You're going to continue facing east. You're going to place the right hand on your heart and chant Upsilon or U. And then finally, you're going to continue facing east. You're going to look to the sky with your hands on your head, and you're going to chant Omega or O. And then you're going to state with as much authority and gusto as you can. Open, open, four quarters of the cosmos, for the Lord of the inhabited world comes forth. Archangels, decans, and angels rejoice. For Aeon of Aeon himself, the only and transcendent, invisible goes through this place. Open door, here bar, fall into two parts, lock. Cast up, earth, for the Lord, all things you contain. For he is the storm sender and controller of the abyss, the master of fire. Then it says to let him now make the sign of the opening of the abyss while speaking the key 3 times, which is as follows. Zazas, Zazas, Nasatanada, Zazas. Let 2 candles of white stood atop the sigil of Semyaza be ignited along with the offering of incense, and let the evocation be opened. And then I'll just finish this out, brother, and then if you want to pick up with whatever we pick next to read in this text, you can start there.
That sounds good to me. That's fine.
The evocation. Great One, Shemyaza, Lord of the Watchers, teacher of sorcery to man, and the lover of the daughters of He. Great Angel Shemyaza, hear me this night as I call on thee. Dweller in Orion, father of Haya and Hiwa, hear my call. Semyaza, who made man partaker in the mysteries of the heavens, bestower of the forbidden truths and teacher of the magical arts. Hear me this hour, for I call to thee across time and space. As thou leapt from the cliff of Haradon, so fly now to me. As thou gavest the gift of wisdom to man, give thine aid to me. So we can see the historiola in that. And so this is going to be the sigil of Shemyaza, right here. And then it shows the Greek the Aramaic and the Hebrew versions of the name. Let the Magus chant the name of the great Semyaza until the Lord of the Watchers makes himself known. As with all spirits, know that no time is he obligated to attend, that at no time is he obligated to attend, and that it may take many such evocations to pique his interest sufficiently that he comes. This being the case, know also that for myself and 4 students with whom I have worked, he has come. Patience and perseverance in evocation, as in all things, are rewarded. Once Semyaza has attended thee, he is to be welcomed warmly, with offerings of incense made to him. Let then the Magus, speaking always reverently and with great respect, announce his desire to set aside a permanent space in his altar or otherwise in his abode, wherein Semyaza may be at home. Interesting. So it's making a vessel of sorts for Shemyaza's energy to inhabit, to make it easier to call upon. And that it is his wish to partake in the wisdom and knowledge imparted by he unto man so long ago, right? And the repetition of that, or the reminding of Shemyaza of that, which is really just a way to butter him up. It's not really a reminder. It's more of a butter up, but that's historiola. That's the act of telling when you're doing magic using historical events that being that you're working with supposedly was involved in, sort of restating that, So as it was saying in the evocation, where is it? That you gave wisdom to man, so give your aid to me as you leapt off the cliff of Haradon, right? I want you to fly now down to me, right? With the quickness that you engaged in those activities, I want you to engage with me. Should he accept your invitation, his dwelling is to be prepared according to his wishes. So this is the preparation of the vessel, which you would then either glean through divination or dream work, or if you're skilled at evocation, then directly during the evocation. Examples of acceptable and pleasing homes wherein his spirit may dwell include a vessel such as a pot, cauldron like if possible. At no time should the home be of bronze or iron, as this is traditionally seen as an effort to imprison the occupant. And that comes from a Goetic sort of working. Alternatively, a wooden chest, such as that which is pictured below, this right here, or something like that I keep my demonic sigils in. I've got a chest here that has symbols on it, and there's sigils of the demons are in here. You can, yeah, the sigils. Well, it's metal. There we go. That's a Buer, and then the others, they're in there. So it's got magical symbols on it to keep the energy contained, so that things don't get crazy. But that's not a vessel. That's more of like a energy containment box, I guess. Um, I presently use. Oh, I already read that. On the home, the pot, the chest, what have you, should be adorned with the sigil of Shemyaza. Mine has containment sigils, not any spirit sigils. But for the vessel, for the spirit, you would want to have their sigils. And then, depending on how you're going to work with them, maybe containment sigils. That's up to you. Along with his names in both Aramaic and Ancient Greek, and it should be dressed thoroughly with abramelin oil before use. Excuse me. Once the home is established and filled according to the wishes of the spirit for whom it is built, the rite of evocation is to be performed again, calling down the spirit and making a formal presentation of their new home and inviting them to take possession of it. Now, this is reminiscent of the Liber Spiritum, in which you call the spirit using the methods that you've already used, but then you call them a second time to be presented with this methodology that you worked with them in order to come up with, and for them to sort of sign their name by stamping of their sigil in the text to give like their agreement, if you will, that they agree to come when called when this method is used. Similar sort of motif here, right? You call the spirit, and the spirit, you present the vessel to the spirit. You don't call the spirit into the vessel, forcing them. You present it to them, and that allows them to yay or nay it. But since you prepared it according to their wishes, they should yay it. Once the space has been offered and accepted by the spirit, any spirit, it is of great importance that the spirit unto whom it was given never be neglected. Offerings of incense and candles should be made as frequently as possible, but not less than once per month. Further, the onus falls on the magus to develop the relationship. So it's up to you. It's not up to the spirit. It's up to you, right? And the spirit might nudge you along, might, hey, it's been a little minute since we talked, might come in your dreams and try to get your attention. But it's up to you to recognize that that's a sign, or to divine it afterwards to know if it was a sign, or something along those lines, to continue building the relationship, because they're not going to. They're going to move on to either someone else or whatever. So keep that in mind. So the onus falls on the magus to develop relationship, calling on the spirit and establishing rapport with him as one would a prospective lover whom he is courting. I would say friends or business partners, not a lover, but that's me. Ever should he be mindful that the spirit, whosoever he shall be, is an entity beyond the human scope of comprehension, and must be given the respect one would give an elder relation. And that is the end of Michael Chittatelli's chapter in Conjure Codex.
Mark Allen Smith.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say Mark Allen Smith. Um,
Yeah, the treating the spirit as a lover is uh, in the same way. I don't agree with that either.
yeah, I'm not too fond of that, but hey, that's just how I work. So, hey, Revna, what's going on? How are you? How are you? Frog on my toe. Welcome in. Glad you're here. Um, so yeah, that was Michael Cittatelli's modern grimoire evocation chapter, where we looked at a modernized way of working with angels and demons. The ritual that was given was specifically for Shemyaza, but that can be adapted to pretty much any spirit. Um, Sublunar, celestial, zodiacal, elemental, whatever. It can be adapted to fit that. Um, so yeah, we can go ahead and move into the next chapter, or I mean, it doesn't have to be the very next chapter, but the next one.
Okay.
Are you interested in reading the Comte de Gabalis? Or
Uh, if you want to read through it, we can. It wasn't one that really caught my eye,
I'm not
though.
that big of a fan of it, so that's why I was asking. I personally don't care to read through it again. I've already read it numerous times. It's not something that I'm interested in. It reads more like a novel anyway, so and I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not looking for that. I so
The Infernal Conjure Craft chapter looked good. It looked like it was more hoodoo-ish.
it is. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
familiar with Chad Barber, or as he goes or used to go by. He doesn't go by it anymore, but Balthazar was what he would go by online back in the
I
day.
actually don't know anything about him.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's from some northern European country. I don't want to lie, but somewhere in northern Europe is where he's from.
Okay.
And yeah, he's really big into hoodoo and using. It's like a mix of Western magic, like ceremonial magic, and hoodoo. I remember he used to have this thing. It was called like the Three Keys, and he would guide you through gaining each of these keys, which consisted of this mixture of like hoodoo and Goetic rituals with divination mixed in there. It was pretty interesting. Um, so yeah, we can definitely do that. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
All right, Infernal Conjure Craft by Chad Weber. Okay, cool. Okay. Oh, come on! I hate that it has to load all this. Did I go too far? I think I went too far. I think this is Kim Hudgens, right?
I didn't realize the chapter before that was
Um,
Angels.
the chapter before that was Angels, the language of birds.
Uh, some of it's angelic. Yeah, it's by Umberto Maggi.
Yeah, yeah, that is a really interesting chapter. But the language of birds is usually a hermetic. That's a secret way to say alchemy in the hermetic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the language of birds is essentially them talking alchemy, or alchemically, I should say. I'm gonna leave this out.
I got you.
All right, yeah, man. If you want to go ahead and pick her up.
Absolutely. Infernal Conjure Craft.
What the hell just
The
happened?
approach offered here is indeed biased towards a hoodoo practice style and setting, along with its magical outlook and assumptions. Oh, okay. So he says it on the first page
Mm-hmm.
or the cover. Introduction. It is my intention with this article to offer a small set of tools and ideas that might introduce hoodooists and other interested magical practitioners to working with the Grimorium Verum in a hoodoo-based style. That's actually how I know it. This is to say, artfully including goetic magic and spirits and hoodoo spellcraft, not only from a practical perspective, but perhaps also a mythic one. The important distinction between the way of working described herein and the ceremonial form that goetic magic normally takes is that the emphasis of this style of work is patterned around the magical system found in the traditional African American conjuring lore. The patterning is infused with goetic spirit work as described by the Grimorium Verum, with the magical symbolism and technology of both systems dovetailed to create an integrated approach that includes both magical modalities in a new synthesis, but maintaining a distinct emphasis on practical spellcraft. And from this perspective, the approach offered here is indeed biased towards a hoodoo practice style and setting, along with its magical outlook and assumptions. Practically speaking, this might include candle work, doll baby work, use of conditioned oils and powders, creating mojo bags and bottle spells, construction of magic lamps, and the array of potent and practical magical techniques and tricks held within root work tradition. These spell systems then are adapted to operate by means of the spirit of the true grimoire, using an approach which is gleaned from the grimoire itself. Whilst it would be impossible to give the reader a grounding in all these hoodoo techniques within the scope of this single article, it is possible to offer an outlook that can be applied to future research and workings. When considering the practical implications of a goetically infused hoodoo style such as the one proposed here, a little adjustment to our conception of what might constitute practical goetic magic in this particular context seems natural. Firstly, as a form of folk magic, like so many other folk magical forms, hoodoo leans towards accessibility and with less emphasis on elaborate ritual tools or complex ceremonies. Instead, it has a much greater emphasis on the use of roots, herbs, and curios, both zoological and mineral, as well as magical geography. This goes hand in hand with a preoccupation with hands-on spellcraft and the nuanced, magically sympathetic gestures and components that constitute this sort of craft. And it really is a craft in the true sense of the word, as subtle and sophisticated as any form of ritual magic could be. It follows that working with the grimoire and its spirits in this way, one would adapt spirit work to follow a similar pattern, opting for a more nuanced understanding of the evocation system, which has spellcraft as its primary focus. Fortunately, the natural and supernatural secrets in the grimoire clearly demonstrates that just such a practical form of goetic spellwork have apparently been intended to function alongside the more complex ceremonial system of the grimoire all along. A system very similar to hoodoo and one that operates by means of the legion of the Grimorium Verum. Additionally, Secrets offers some very clear formulas which give us an insight into the very practical nature of its underlying principles. By coming to that with a working knowledge of the hoodoo repertoire, we are able to flesh it out and develop it even further. Consequently, this goetic style of hoodoo is a new development, and although its roots are as ancient as magic itself, we need to be respectful and differentiate it from African American hoodoo. This isn't traditional hoodoo, it's something else. I'd like to think of it as infernal conjure. This approach has some things in common with the magic of Brazilian Quimbanda, Magia Negra Brujeria, certain streams of Haitian magic, as well as historical witchcraft in its various forms, all the way back to the dawn of pre-Christian Goetia. You could say that it taps into the current form of chthonic witchcraft and sorcery traceable throughout history, sorcery which has at its core spirit-based spellcraft.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long introduction, but it was a good introduction.
Yeah, that was actually really good. It reminds me of Debbie Spring, the Queen of Pentacles blog from back in the day. She also did this, and there was a bit of a controversy on who was first, so then who copied off of who. But she had a article which you can still find on the Wayback Machine called Goetic Conjure, or Goetic Hoodoo, excuse me, Goetic Hoodoo. And it was essentially what we're going to, a lot of what you're going to see in this chapter is what she would write about on that blog. And yeah, it was really, really cool to see someone take the grimoires and mix hoodoo with it, because that wasn't seen prior to 2010, 2011-ish. So
Yeah. And I mean, growing up in where I'm at in Birmingham and in the South, in the heart of hoodoo country and Southern conjure, uh, you see a lot of this stuff and don't realize that it traces back to the Grimorium Verum or the Key of Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of these sigils throughout conjurecraft and other forms of folk magic in the South, especially. So it's interesting to read the takes on it, considering this is what I see around me. These are the way that people work around me. So
Nice, nice. Yeah, I wish I had. I mean, if actually, it's funny. I did see a sign. I was coming back from lunch today, and I was driving back to the office, and I saw a sign for a curandera. It was like a literal sign that was posted on a wooden light post, and it was like, call this number, for folk healing and divination and all this. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'd never thought to see anything like that. Um, but as
spreading up the East Coast.
yeah, I know. But as far as I'm aware, I don't really have anything like what you probably have readily available around you.
It's just it's going to be different. So yours in the Northeast, the folk styles are more influenced by like cunning craft,
Mm-hmm.
cunning work. Uh, in the South, it's a heavier ATR influence, but also because of the settlement of Spaniards and other Europeans in the South, there's a lot of grimoire integration. So, and because there was a lot of not Catholics, but a lot of Protestants down here, so a lot of it blended together.
Okay.
It's really interesting, though. Hoodoo, God, and the Devil at the Crossroads. So you might ask, how can one work in this way, employing a black grimoire as notorious as the Grimorium Verum and its seemingly diabolical pact-making system when hoodoo is so firmly grounded in folk Christianity? A good question, and to answer it, we must direct our attention briefly to one of the most interesting and possibly mysterious elements of the Conjure mythos, the rite of making a pact with the dark man at the crossroads, also known as the devil. I would asterisk that.
Yeah.
Uh, it has been argued that this figure is a syncretism between the crossroads intermediary spirit that populates New World tradition and the slave master's Christian devil, most likely the result of demonization of African ancestral spirits. Much like the spirits of the Grimorium Verum, which are often demonized forms of older pre Christian spirits, yet, despite his devilish character, this figure continues to occupy an important, if deeply mysterious, role in rootwork tradition. Certainly, it is hard to refute that there is a current of diabolism running through the traditional Christian hoodoo. Despite hoodoo's folk Christian framework, the crossroads rite persists as an enduring and important source of mythic wisdom and magical power. By its inclusion, it can be argued that infernal symbols and the language of the diabolical are legitimate sources of knowledge and magical power within the overall conception of the tradition. Further, we find several traditional infernal and demonic substances, materials, and formulas contained within the corpus of traditional hoodoo lore. Substances with hellish associations such as sulfur, fire and brimstone, black dog hair, the devil is thought to have a black dog, mullein, used in hoodoo to conjure and control dreams, kinda, and formulas such as dark arts oil, incense, and powder, all geared towards conjuring infernal spirits and for use in black magic. Similarly, figural candles of devils, skulls, Baphomet, and other chthonic forms have become commonplace in many conjure shops. Considering all this, we can see that a nuanced and multivalent New World conception of the devil makes him a very interesting figure in hoodoo, and in fact, one of three key sources of a conjurer's spiritual contact and power. Traditionally speaking, God, the dead, and the devil. And while it cannot be said that this element is truly satanic in the modern sense of the word, there still remains a certain Luciferian quality to the proposition of meeting the dark man at the crossroads. Numerous accounts recorded by Harry Middleton Hyatt described root doctors entering pacts with the crossroads devil to gain the ability to work magic, as did the famous figure Zora Neale Hurston, by her own admission. Jeffrey E. Anderson draws a parallel to West African tradition which, along with Congo influences, had a major role in the formation of hoodoo, in which sorcerers would approach evil spirits in order to gain power, remarking that African Americans followed a similar path, entering similar pacts with the Dark Man in order to gain the ability to conjure. Uh, I don't agree with that description. Um,
Okay.
the, so the Congo Angola traditions wouldn't have viewed the spirit as evil, more tricksterish. Not,
Oh,
it's
I
not
see
a
what you. All right. Okay.
devilish.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a devilish figure.
Right.
Um, so that characterization is a little off to me, but the rest of it is good. Looked at from this wider mythic perspective, one might say that a folkloric form of goetic magic, in some sense, has been part of hoodoo for some time already. This offers adventurous practitioners the opportunity for plausible inclusion of further goetic spirit work by following a similar magical trajectory. Admittedly, the rite of meeting the devil has been met with great variance of responses in contemporary and historical conjure, ranging from outright rejection as satanic to the full embrace of it as an essential aspect of the tradition. And on to the more recent fashion of collapsing the devil, symbolic as a syncretism of the ubiquitous African crossroads intermediary. However, there is no getting around the fact that later in hoodoo, which is mainly Protestant, the dark man was understood to be the devil in an unmistakable, if nuanced sense. In this regard, then, hoodoo tradition might offer an illuminating and practical approach for working with the infernal realm, one in which that which is commonly perceived as evil or demonic instead becomes a valid source of skill, knowledge, and power, while at the same time foregoing any of the outright dualism seen in mainstream Christian doctrine and indeed Western occultism. From the pragmatic perspective of folk magic, God, the dead, and the devil are all legitimate sources of empowerment. Of course, my conflation with the folkloric concept of the devil in relation to goetic magic is meant to have him stand as a kind of mythological signifier for the entirety of the chthonic forces of the Goetia,
Hmm.
rather than the spiritual boogeyman that figures in mainstream imagination. So that is similar, very similar to Tradcraft and how Tradcraft views this.
As a signifier for the entirety of the chthonic realm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your folkloric devil is a tutelary spirit
Mm-hmm.
that you make a pact with. That is the not the door to all of the chthonic spirits, but the key to the door to give
Okay.
you access to the chthonic spirits.
Okay.
Um, and then the witch mother is the key to the door and the guardian of the gate to get to infernal and celestial um, realms and beings. So there's a duality in that way. But yeah, the folk devil, the man at the crossroads, or witch father, whatever you want to call him, is more of a concept, a signifier for the entirety of the forces.
Okay. Interesting.
Similarly, yeah, I do not propose that he may be any particular figure within the grimoire's hierarchy as such, but rather a mythic doorway through which a goetically inclined hoodooist might step into the chthonic dimension described by the grimoire. So yeah, that's tradecraft is what he's describing.
Wow.
Um, what is of particular interest to the work discussed here is that, quite remarkably, while the system of the Grimorium Verum is framed in a pious Christian theology and retains those religious trappings in its ritual system, it simultaneously embraces the diabolical devices such as sacrifices and blood pacts, seemingly without any apparent conflict or dissonance. Additionally, there is no method of coercion or torture of spirits, but rather they are befriended. These 2 points alone are profoundly illuminating, and one could speculate that this is why the grimoire was so readily absorbed in many New World traditions, where sacrifice and contracts with spirits are commonplace. More importantly, the way that the Grimorium Verum frames its theology offers hoodooists a useful formula and framework for incorporating goetic work into conjurecraft without getting into an adversarial theology themselves, or any need to abandon the Christian symbolism and underpinnings of traditional hoodoo either, for that matter. At the heart of this perspective lies the insight that the infernal or chthonic realm is not at odds with the divine, but part of it. I'll read down to natural and supernatural secrets if you want to swap there.
Okay. Okay, perfect. The next chapter. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Or a sub-chapter.
Yeah. Further, we might observe how the pact with an enigmatic devil at the crossroads rhymes with the pact of the Grimorium Virum, both in terms of its mythic narrative and its magical ramifications. In turn, the Grimorium Virum brings a workable, non adversarial philosophy to dealing with infernal spirits that is deeply resonant with Hoodoo's own traditional methodologies for petitioning the aid of spiritual entities, whether these be the dead, saints, or the dark man at the crossroads himself. Spirits are petitioned and bargained with, and rarely, if ever, are they bullied or coerced. They are usually paid in exchange for their services. Often deals are made, and as we can see in the famed crossroads ritual, the dark man or devil is approached respectfully and seen as an initiator. Yes. These attitudes are entirely sympathetic to the overall conception of the Grimorium Verum, which similarly places a great emphasis on pleasing the spirits and paying them for any magical favors. Finally, and very importantly, there is the matter of the key role of Skirlin, the system's own intermediary spirit, who puts one in touch with all the spirits and grants the operator a form of non coercive control over them. The intermediary function of this goetic entity is a rather unique feature of the Grimorium Verum when compared to the rest of Grimoire tradition, but what makes this facet of the system most remarkable and useful for the work described here is that it is yet another characteristic that this fascinating grimoire shares with both New World and African Spiritist systems. As such, an intermediary spirit constitutes a core mechanism in many of these spiritual traditions. Interestingly, often enough, the intermediary spirit is syncretized with the devil when he reaches the New World, as seen with Hoodoo's Dark Man at the crossroads. As is evident, these kinds of symmetries open up a host of fertile magical and mythological avenues for creative synthesis and spellwork, while still offering the possibility of remaining true to the spirit of both systems.
All right. Natural and supernatural secrets. As mentioned, the grimoire's natural and supernatural secrets offers a clear glimpse into the kind of Goetic spellwork that has been intended to function alongside the greater conjuration system of the grimoire. It offers several insightful formulas which can be unpacked to reveal the core principles of what might constitute a functional Goetic hoodoo. This was common of grimoires from like 16th, 17th century onwards. Prior to that, we really didn't see a lot of this, but the Black Dragon has it, the Red Dragon has it, the one of the Honorius grimoires has it. I forget which one. It's not unpopular once you get to a certain time period. But the Virum, I think, is one of the oldest, so I think it is a 16th century grimoire. And so it's one of the first to have it. So, but anyway,
Okay.
this is especially so if one approaches natural and supernatural secrets with a working knowledge of the hoodoo and folk magic repertoire. So there are prerequisites that one needs to know in order to, you know. But anyway, upon closer inspection, much of what seems like straight up malefica, which is to say capricious spells that hurt or unalive, are revealed to be clever conjure systems that can be used in a variety of ways to help or harm, especially as one begins to examine the versatility of the underlying principles of these spells. We see this a lot, you know, with conspiracy theories and stuff like that, right? They, the few times they might get a hold of a legitimate, text or something, they think that they understand what they're reading, but when you actually get down to the bare bones, to the nitty gritty, you find out that it's nowhere near as evil as they're trying to make it seem. It actually might be something to help rather than to harm, something to give rather than something to take. But all they see is that it's a spell, it's a ritual, and therefore evil. Um,
The pins in the voodoo doll.
right, exactly, exactly. Um, it then becomes as straightforward as changing spirit names, sigils, and orations in alignment with the new intentions to have entirely different effects. Hey, what's up, International? Needless to say, these spells use the grimoire's spirits to expedite their effect, providing what experience has proven to be the most efficacious means to practical magic. Spirit driven spell work. And I 100% agree. So let's talk about pacts, implicit and explicit. And here's a quote from the Verum, or the True Grimoire. There are two kinds of pact, the tacit and the apparent, otherwise said, the implicit and the explicit. You will know the one from the other if you read this little book. Know, however, that there are many kinds of spirits, some attractive and others not attractive. It is when you make a pact with a spirit and have to give the spirit something that belongs to you that you have to be on your guard. And that's true. And so this means blood, hair, fingernails, anything from you, especially literally, you want to be wary of, because now the spirit has influence over you. Um, that's what that's referencing there. Before we get into some examples of spell adaptations drawn from the principles underlying secrets, we may need to discuss some of the basic assumptions we can make about how to approach a Goetic hoodoo. To do that, we need to look at a few practical approaches that might be taken with regard to Goetic spellcraft and its relation to the full conjuration system of the grimoire. Right? So this is what I'm talking about when I mention understanding how things work, right? In most cases, understanding the correspondences so you can do stuff like this, right? How would you, if you know nothing about how magic works and how the grimoires work, how folk magic works, correspondences and all that, how things relate to each other in a metaphysical sense, how would you take a grimoire like the Verum and make it into a modernized hoodoo system? You wouldn't know how to do anything like that. You would have no choice but to use the grimoire as intended, or else you got to choose a different grimoire or a different system. And so that's what he's about to get into here. The knowing of these things allows you to be able to do this. Take a grimoire from the 16th century and bring it into the modern day and mixing it with hoodoo or any type of folk magical system. So anyway, one approach would be to become an operator of the full ceremonial system outlined in the True Grimoire by constructing the tools and going through the formal conjuration and pact procedure, and then on to working Goetic hoodoo spells of the sort described here alongside, or in conjunction with the full ritual system. Certainly, this would give one a firm footing with the spirits as well as the magical current of the grimoire. In this way, long-term pacts with various spirits appropriate to the conjurer's area of interest would be cultivated. So how we can bring back the old times? Yes, essentially, but mixing it with modern stuff to modernize it and make it what some would say is a living tradition. Sorry, my computer gave me a little update. There is another strategy suggested implicitly by the secrets, however, whereby one engages the spirits in magical work on a spell by spell basis. Excuse me, as appears to be the case in the secrets operations. For this perspective, each spell could be viewed as a short-term implicit pact, where the terms are negotiated for each spell. This approach is much closer to traditional hoodoo methods, which place less emphasis on elaborate ritual and more situational spellcraft. Further, spirits are not understood to be conjured to full appearance in these sorts of spells, but rather their power and influence, or their energy, is petitioned and woven into the constitution and construction of each spell itself, which is a subtle but very important distinction. And it's really not so subtle. You're not going to see the spirit, right? You may feel something, but 9 times out of 10 in this type of conjury, you're not going for seeing or really hearing anything. It's mostly understanding whether or not that subtle energetic shift took place, which is actually one of the major purposes of the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, that a lot of people don't know. They think it's just a banishing ritual when it's more than that. And one of the things is to help you be able to determine if energies have shifted in your immediate area. So that way, in the case of the lesser banishing ritual, you know magic is happening. But in other cases, is there, an imposter spirit going around? Is anything present? Stuff like that. Excuse me. Where did I leave off? This is done by various means, such as including spirit seals and orations in the spells, along with verbal or written petitions. Hey, thank you for the gift, as well as other symbolic gestures during the manipulation of materia magica, which we shall get into a bit later. The former requires the construction of the tools and a ritual circle. The latter can be done at the kitchen table, graveyard, or crossroads for that matter, using basic spell ingredients and a little cunning, meaning a little know how, a little cleverness, which comes from knowing what you're doing. And then that's where everyone's going to have a different looking practice, right? Someone who, was raised on, Appalachian folk magic, is theirs might look a little different from someone who does, Louisiana hoodoo. So yeah, that cunning is going to be heavily influenced by your upbringing and your background. Um, Similarly, the former approach is more structured with all the benefits that this brings, whilst the latter can be more freeform with a little more risk. That's why the cunning is necessary. Additionally, working with short term implicit pacts in these sorts of spells, the practitioner can get to know the various spirits a little better, and well informed decisions can be made with regard to longer term pacts based on these sorts of working relationships. So, the difference between explicit and implicit, right? Explicit is something that it's obvious what is happening here, and it is a long term commitment. It's not something that you're looking to get, tomorrow, next week, maybe even next month. It's something that you're working towards long term that the spirit can help you achieve, right? Whereas implicit is going to be your, I don't want to say generic, but it's going to be your situational type spells, right? So calling on the spirit for a love working, right? Maybe you're looking for love, and then maybe you call them to, your best friend is going through a tough time with their current lover, so you want to break them up or something like that. So then you go to the spirit to break up someone, and then maybe you go back to the spirit to help that, your friend find someone else, right? It's these situational, one time you do, I give you this, and in return this is what I want, and then I'll see you later, right? It's the situational type of magic, I guess, would separate implicit from explicit, which is a longer term sort of a strategy. Um, where did I leave off here? The latter strategy is also quite evident in the way material from the Grimorium Verum was introduced to magical approaches of the New World, where it has been creatively adapted to plug into indigenous folk magic and religion, usually to hair-raising effect. As the principles underlying the secrets reveal, this sort of adaptation is done easily enough and quite naturally if the system applied is applied artfully. Again, you would need the knowledge to do that. Nonetheless, we should also be aware that the spirits might be a little more unpredictable if they are not bound by the full pact form of the main system. but rather the short-term implicit pact of a spell. Special care needs to be taken that the terms of these short-term pacts are met and that the spirits are paid their dues. That, or you can work with spirits that are less likely to, need to be bound by some sort of a pact system. So spirits that are maybe a little closer to you, like ancestors or something along those lines, might be better for beginners. In either case, from a practical perspective, it is vital that a good working relationship with the intermediary spirit Skirlin be cultivated, and especially so in the looser framework of the second approach, because it is Skirlin who maintains control of the spirits, constrains them to come, and intercedes on the behalf of the practitioner. So there's no way around the third party. In a very real sense, Skirlin is the linchpin of the entire system. To this end, a special altar space for Skirlin might be constructed and furnished with items dedicated to the work. Devices such as a spirit pot, dedicated divining tools, votive candles, and offerings could all be included in cultivating this sort of connection. This then would be an appropriate place to perform infernal conjurecraft, following the New World practice and of setting up dedicated altar spaces for spirit work. Now, you may not have enough space, right? You might want to work with 10 different spirits. You may not have the space to set up 10 different altars, right? So this is where knowledge and the cunning could come in. For people who don't have the space but want to work with multiple spirits, one suggestion could be to work with spirits that are aligned, right? So you can put them all on one altar, right? Rather than having spirits that are diametrically opposed to each other on the same altar, and you cause issues within your own immediate space. And then you're spending more time banishing and cleansing than you are actually doing any work for yourself or for others. So that's an example of knowing how to work these types of magics, so that way if changes are needed, you can make those changes.
Yeah,
How?
I would.
Yes.
And I know he said that he wasn't going to get into like detailed working when it comes to hoodoo, but this is not going to be for somebody that doesn't practice either system. So coming from hoodoo, you would already have the spiritual intermediaries lined up. You would have your relationship with your ancestors, your pact with the crossroads spirit, your relationship with gatekeepers. So you would have those kind of fail safes in place and spirits that could guide you to which spirits would be better to work with.
Agreed.
Um,
Um,
so,
all right, I'll read down to Goetic doll babies, and then if there's still time, you could pick up under Goetic doll babies.
okay.
All right, Goetic seals and petition papers. I use Joss paper, the same material made for my Hell Notes, or Ancestor Money, I guess. But anyway, Goetic seals and petition paper. In its simplest form, or excuse me, in its simplest and most historically resonant form, the inclusion of Goetic sigils or seals in hoodoo spellwork should be our first port of call. Solomonic seals have been included in various forms in hoodoo since the introduction of grimoires to the tradition by the mail order suppliers in the early 20th century. We know in Europe they go back to the 18th century. We know that they were called the Bibliothèque Bleue, which is why Scarlet Imprint has Bibliothèque Rouge, or Rouge as an homage to that. Although there appears to be few references to Solomonic material earlier than this in the Hyatt material. Interestingly, we find inclusion of spirit seals from the Grimorium Verum in Robert Pelton's Complete Book of Voodoo, and while this particular text is not the most reliable source, it does seem to have drawn on actual accounts of conjure work circa 1960. We also find the use of seals from the Black Pullet, or the Black Poulet, since it's about a chicken, employed frequently in conjure making for yet another serendipitous connection. especially considering that this interesting little grimoire is structurally and historically related to the Verum. Such seals are generally dressed with condition oils and then used as petition papers, placed under candles or placed inside mojo bags and in other container spells, or along with any other conjure work in which petition papers might usually be included. Similarly, in the natural and supernatural secrets, almost all of the spellcraft, and especially sympathetic magical procedures such as the manipulation of wax dolls, driving nails into footprints, and so forth, we find that these workings are empowered by the inclusion of spirit seals in the material construction of each spell, either on parchment or drawn on the ground or some other material. Hey Liz, what's up? They had a lot of influence on Pontos Riscatos as well. Oh, really? The Sung Points. I didn't know that. Okay, that's awesome. I read that. Okay. This then is in its barest form the core system we can most expediently adapt for Goetic Hoodoo. And as such, we can make the very useful assumption that the seals have the power to implicitly evoke the influence of a spirit into a working. It is then up to the conjurer to divine which spirit would be most appropriate to the work at hand, petition the spirit with the help of Skirlin, and perform the spell under its aegis. The complexity need not necessarily be even that great, as we can deduce from the spells and the secrets. And most importantly, this is the key feature in both Hoodoo tradition and the grimoire that perfectly overlap, creating our first vital link. Working in this way, then, one might select an appropriate spirit from the hierarchy using preferred divinatory tools, which is always recommended. The spirit seal would then be drawn on blessed parchment. Skirlin petitioned in order to make contact with the spirit successfully, and using further divination, arrange the terms of the spell with the spirit. These might include the desired effect on the working and the payment offered to the spirit upon completion of the work. And following common Hoodoo protocol, the petition might be written out in full on the back of the seal, including the terms and agreement, which would then be dressed with an appropriate condition oil, such as, say, dark arts oil. Finally, the seal is included in the construction of a spell, whether this be a simple candle spell, a mojo hand, or a more elaborate working such as a magic lamp, giving the intrepid Goetic Hoodooist a familiar and very accessible approach to working with Goetic spirits. This approach becomes in essence an implicit spell-based pact and can be elaborated on with more ritual complexity according to taste and ability. What's up, gorgeous? Welcome back. Glad to see you. Glad you're here.
Isn't there a lamp in, I want to say, the Pikatrix? No,
The PGM. There's lamp.
PGM.
Yep. There's lamp scrying.
Yep.
Further techniques employing spirit sigils. I'm back to talk the occult. What's up, Octavian? Welcome back. Considering the important role that the inclusion of spirit sigils takes in the material construction of a spell, it's worth noting that there are numerous practical ways in which these can be introduced into a working or empower spell work other than being inscribed on parchment. Taking chalk and drawing a sigil on the ground or work table, for instance. Or not even chalk, you could use the natron that we talked about earlier. You can use this cornmeal type of material to make the sigils, etc. Which one is this one? This is the first one. This is the first Conjure Codex, Volume 1. To set the stage for magical work is a potent and effective way of incorporating these spirit figures. Chalk holds a special place in the New World ritual symbolism, often associated with bones and therefore the underworld and the dead. A chalk sigil can then be activated by blowing cigar smoke onto it, keeping in mind that tobacco smoke is an important tool in many New World magical systems, viewed as a means of contact and offering but also heating or stimulating spiritual entities. In hoodoo, mojo bags are sometimes fed tobacco smoke for this reason. Similarly, a swig of whiskey or rum might be mouth sprayed across a chalk sigil with sharp and powerful blast to ensure that it forms a fine mist-like spray rather than a messy squirt. We've seen that numerous times so far in this text. The mouth spray technique, too, is found in numerous of these systems as a means of activating spirit markings. You guys know that I do both the tobacco and the alcohol options with my necromantic work. Where did I leave off? The mouth spray technique too is found in numerous of these systems as a means of activating spirit markings or pots and so forth, and acts as part offering, part spiritual stimulant. In Conjure, whiskey is sometimes mouth sprayed onto mojo bags to feed a mojo, for instance. In either case of blown tobacco smoke or mouth sprayed alcohol, expelled breath figures as a vital component in the technique, infusing the object or sigil with the operator's own life stuff, and is therefore closely equitable in both to blood in both the organic and magical sense. Once a sigil is patentized, spellcraft can be performed atop such an area. A magic lamp, for instance, might be created and left to burn there, or a mojo bag tied, herbs chopped, or ground. Such sigils could, of course, be drawn in the dirt using a stick or wand whilst working at the crossroads or elsewhere outside. By the same token, magical powders, which are commonplace in Conjure, containing powdered herbs, roots, oils, and talcum, with some practice, could be used to draw a spirit sigil on a work surface. Such powder sigils might become activated by puffing smoke on them or burning candles down over them, accompanied by the petitions, and thereafter might be gathered up once again, empowered by the process, and deployed elsewhere to expedite their magical aims near the target of the work, a place of business, path of an enemy or lover, etc. Fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating. And that actually, I was going to ask you a question because they said something and they didn't, I don't think they said it in that last paragraph.
Okay.
But I've always been told that when you burn candles over sigils, especially when there's materia on it, you're supposed to collect the wax with the materia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if that's a common teaching, but that's what I've always heard.
Yeah, so I wasn't necessarily taught hoodoo, so I can't say that that's what I was taught. But that's the way that I learned when coming into hoodoo myself. That's what I learned. But I can't speak to what is taught since I wasn't formally taught hoodoo.
Yeah,
Um,
I was just always told you gather it.
yeah. Son of Mars. Oh no, I'm sorry. We do not accept guests during a reading. That's generally only during Sunday streams where we invite guests up, or if I'm doing like a solo Q&A or debate stream or something like that. But thank you though. Feel free to put your question or comments in the chat, and we will answer them.
I like
Sorry,
the
brother.
next section. Do you want to go ahead and start the doll baby section because it's fairly long um, compared to the other sections? Or do you
Uh,
want to pause at that section?
I mean, let's see here. I guess we could stop here and
Okay,
take any questions from the chat and stuff like that. And
sure.
we'll pick this up next week.
This section's going to be cool, though. The Goetic doll babies.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This is the famed voodoo dolls that people think about.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is going to be a really interesting section. What page is this? This is page 116. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me put this on the. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. So this is April 14. finished on page. What did I say? 113? 115. So we're on 116. 116 at the start of Goetic Doll Babies. All right. Excellent. So, what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to go ahead and take your questions, comments, complaints, emotional outbursts in the chat. We got like 13 minutes left here before the end of the stream. So, any comments, questions, emotional outbursts, please put it in the chat. We will respond to the best of our ability. I still have our old notes from a few years ago. Nice, good, good. I'm glad that you kept them. I'm glad that you kept them. Is there a PDF for this book? Yes, we're reading the PDF now, but I actually do have a physical copy. So
Yeah, I do too.
you should also get a physical copy, or else technically, the PDFs are illegal, quote unquote. But yes, there are PDF copies out there. That's what we are reading from, so you guys can read because I don't have one of those fancy God's eye cameras that you see a lot of like the book talk people have, where they have the book laying on the table and the camera's over it, and you can like read the physical book. I don't have that, so but we've got the physical copy here and the PDF on the screen, so you guys can read with me. I love me a poppet, indeed. Who doesn't love a good poppet? Who doesn't love a good poppet? I actually prefer hollow ones, the ones that I can fill or load myself and then sew back up. The easy sew ones.
I like those
Yeah, it like
a lot.
leaves either the side or something open so you could stuff it, and then you can either, if it's the super cheap ones, you can like tie it. But then there's some that come with like these clasps or whatever, easy sew, and yeah, I prefer those um, rather than just like a doll baby made just of yarn or something. Matthew used to sell hollow clay effigies. Yes, yes, I remember he made mine in that way. I asked him but then I ended up telling him, just load it with this, and I'll be fine. But
Uh, yeah, I've used the pre-sewn hollow poppets, but for short-term workings, you can also make them out of paper. Really doesn't have to
oh yeah,
be
true,
super complicated.
true, very true. Mm-mm-mm. You can get the PDF. Yes, yes. Yep. They offer PDFs on the Haitian website. Very true. I got here late, so I have no questions. That's okay. No problem. What was the topic? We're doing a reading, so we're reading Conjure Codex, Volume One, um, and we're going to go through all of them. Um, but right now we're on Volume One, and then we'll move into Volume Two, Three, Four, Five. Um, but yeah, so dang, I came at 9:30 my time. That's okay. Yeah, but it's 9:30 Eastern time. 9:30 Eastern time. So tomorrow I'll come at 8:30 my time. Well, there's no stream tomorrow. We only stream Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. Those are the guaranteed streams. The rest of the week it's generally up to me, and it's usually by myself. Um, but I do have a life to live and things to do, so Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are the guaranteed stream days. I have a question about voodoo. Okay, I will do my best to answer. I don't practice voodoo. As far as I'm aware, Venom, you don't practice voodoo either, right?
No.
Okay. So if we know the answer, we'll do our best to answer, but keep in mind that we do not practice voodoo. Um, Matthew used, I already read that. I saw a clip saying voodoo dolls were diagnostic tools. How true is that? What do you mean diagnostic tools? Like to diagnose like issues and problems? Um,
They,
m- Maybe I've never uh, heard of that, but that doesn't mean anything. Um,
I've heard of them as like a diagnostic notebook, essentially. So, like,
okay.
if you come to the priest and he works on your head, he puts a pin in your head, in your doll's
Oh,
head,
okay.
and
I've
keeps it
I've heard of
to
that. I
keep
thought they
track
meant like
of.
using it to figure out like oh, you've got issues in your liver because I used the doll to diagnose that. That's what I thought. Like they meant like that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I have heard of that. Um, and what is a poppet? A doll, a voodoo doll, or what Hollywood would have you believe a voodoo doll is. Is that's what a poppet is. It's a little humanoid figurine, usually made of like yarn or clay, paper, as Venom said earlier, candle wax, um, any sort of material really. Sticks, you can use sticks, wooden sticks. People do it
Mhm.
with those because they're cheap. They get like those popsicle sticks, and they make them out of that because they're cheap, and you get like 1,000, well, like 200 in like a bag. So, um, yeah, it's just a humanoid figurine that is used to represent either yourself or another person, another target, in magical working. So,
Bane or blessing, either way.
yep, any sort of working. Best book for beginners like me? Well, it depends on what you're interested in. That's always a hard question because if you don't know what you're interested in, I could give you a beginner book on Western occultism and you might not be interested in that. So, are do you know what you're interested in, and then maybe we can give you some recommendations. Um, or okay, I'll just throw out a general one. For beginners, I would say um, how to keep it non-denominational. I would say Matt Oren's Psychic Witch and Mastering Magic is a good jump-off point, as well as Maya
Mhm.
Ohm's two books, Energy Essentials for Spellcasters and Witches, and the Unspell book, um, to keep it as or non-denominational, not trying to steer you in any specific path or direction. I'm not sure if you have any alternate
So,
recommendations.
Jason Miller's Sorcerer's Secrets.
That's a good one.
Um, if you're interested in spirit work, consorting with spirits is a good intermediate
Excellent.
kind of book. So those two are really good.
Yeah. I think I have all. Actually, I have all four of those that were recommended. So here's the Matt Oren ones that I recommended. So here's Mastering Magic, and then Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, and then Jason Miller. Um, so I have the Sorcerer's Secrets, but it's the updated version. So the publishing company updated the title, Real Sorcery, but it is the Sorcerer's Secrets. Um, he says it in the freaking introduction here. Yeah, he says it in the introduction that this is the Sorcerer's Secrets, and that they just wanted to reprint it. And then the Consorting with Spirits, also by Mr. Miller. So that way you have the visuals for what you're looking for when you're on Amazon or whatever. So start there. Start there. I also have videos here on TikTok. My Getting Started playlist. Check out that. There's about 5 or 6 videos in there for getting started. I like using beeswax ones. I don't think I've ever tried beeswax poppets. That sounds cool. I mean, unless the candle ones I've used were made out of beeswax. Um, I practice hoodoo. The concept of a doll comes from the Nkisi, which comes from the Congo. Yes, I'm familiar with. Well, I'm familiar with the um, Nkisi from Pelo, which I guess you know can be said to be derived from Congolese sorcery.
It does sort of come from the Inkisi, yeah. But image magic happened in a lot of cultures, not just the Congolese.
Yes,
Um,
of course.
but Inkisi can be things other than that. So, like the Bible is an Inkisi. Spirit
Mm.
pots can be Inkisi. It's anything that connects you to the divine. Or so.
You have over 20 years of experience, so it's so much to absorb. Yeah, don't go off of my experience. What are you interested in? My experience is irrelevant in the case of what you're looking for. Um, I'm a student in the school. Can I ask questions there? Of course, of course. Put your questions in the school. Is it raining? No way. That's crazy.
A book
Um,
that's a bit longer that's real that I found was good when I first started was actually the Inner Temple of Witchcraft or the Temple of Witchcraft series by
oh,
Christopher Penczak.
by Mr. Penskak. Nice.
Hmm.
Nice. Yeah, I've not read any of the Temple of Witchcraft, but I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah, I liked it when I was younger. I think I got my first copy when I was 17, so
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Do you practice hoodoo? A bit, yeah. Yeah. I would call it more um sort of like ancestral folk magic, but yes, there is a lot of elements of hoodoo that is utilized. I remember you telling us you use magic to get closer to God. Yeah, that's how my magical, or that's how magic is incorporated into my practice. Yes, I rarely use it for material gain. I'm not really out here casting spells on people, or at least not anymore. When I was younger, yeah, but these days it's more for spiritual attainment and ascent rather than material. Um, so, but that's also because I build my foundation on a religion, right? So, um, most religions aim for that anyway. So, yes, what Venom said. Huh. Is it true? Is what true?
About the record keeping for the voodoo dolls.
Oh,
Uh, as far as I know, I've heard that account from several people, so I do believe that's true.
there you go. Okay, I want a puppet. Well, you can buy a puppet. You can just Google or go on Etsy or something and look up puppets for sale. Anything you do, I'm interested in. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I practice hoodoo. Oh, we already read that. Um, you're saying it so fast. Saying what so fast specifically? Aaron Leach books. Aaron Leach is fine. I don't mind Aaron Leach. I like Aaron Leach. Um, Secrets of the Magical Grimoires is pretty cool. Um, I when it comes to Enochian, I prefer his books over pretty much anything else. At least when it comes to the language. Practice wise, I would go elsewhere, but when it comes to like the language of Enochian, his books are pretty phenomenal. And Soul in the
I
Effigy
like
is good
Aaron
for spirit
Leach.
work as well. Yes. And sorry, Venom. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
I like Aaron Leach as a person, and I've read through some of his books. I do like him.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind Aaron Leach at all. He's definitely going to be quoted well into the future. His books I believe are going to be among the ones that are referenced decades, if not centuries from now. All right, we'll do another question or two. What school? Um, check the. I don't want to get in trouble. I get in trouble every time I tell people to click on something in my IO. I don't know. I'm not good at substituting this. So check the.
His biographical information.
There you go. Check the hyper link. God, I don't know what I can say. There's something in my biographical information that you should probably click on, um, and that'll take you somewhere. Where I don't know, but somewhere, and maybe in that place you'll be able to ask all the questions you want and all that. I don't know. You got to check it out and see for yourself because I can't tell you. Uh, Is it dangerous in conjuring? Can evil spirits come? Well, I would say,
Hmm.
for the most part, any system of magic can be dangerous. There's dangers in pretty much anything, but that word can be used either very literally or very loosely on what you might mean by dangerous. But in the way you might mean it, conjuring can be dangerous. Yes, you don't want to. This is not something you want to just jump into. So I would start with the books that we recommended, um, and go from there. You don't want to just jump into conjuring, because yes, negative spirits can come. Imposter spirits are a thing. You don't Trickster spirits are a thing. You don't want to, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't want to start with spirit work. That's not something to start with.
No, no. I would say 1 to 3 years, depending on how diligently you study and practice, is a good goalpost for spirit work.
Yeah.
So,
Venom gave you a good recommendation with consorting with spirits. If you don't believe us, check out consorting with spirits. It's not something to start with, and that's not to scare you or anything like that. But it's a reality, and you'll see it for yourself when you start reading those types of books, or attempting those things, and either not getting what you asked for or getting complete opposite. Maybe things backfire. Um, yeah, start with the books that we recommended. Work those, and then, like Venom said, a couple years of practice, then you could start looking at conjuring. So
if you know specifically you're interested in conjure, study things that are going to gear you in that direction. So, and get very familiar with some rites of exorcism, blessing,
mhm.
uh, the things that you would need if you were to come in contact with those entities, as well as working on spiritual discernment. You can practice that with people. Um, you can read on people what their energy is, what their intent is, how good or bad of a person they are. And that applies to spirits as well. So as you work on opening your third eye, that skill can translate over to the spiritual as well.
Excellent,
So I
excellent
would start
advice.
there.
All right, we'll just do these last two questions, and then we will get out of here. What's a good spell to do for fortune when applying for social programs? So I don't memorize because I don't cast spells in that way. Um, Guess you know by now, and I do like ancestral type folk magic. I do petition based magic, so I don't cast spells in the traditional way. So I don't know a good spell for you. I would say work with, you said fortune when applying for social programs. You can work with the sun. You can work with Mercury. You can work with Jupiter. The spirits and the beings of those spheres, I would say, can help you. But yeah, I don't cast spells in the traditional. Like if you get a book on Amazon, a spell book of like spells, I don't cast spells in that way. So I can't help you with a spell per se. I can more help you with a ritual. So I don't know, Venom. You have a different response.
I would safest way and probably the most efficient would be to do exactly what you said, to petition one of the planetary energies.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I would suggest. Okay, but can I still light my candle over my bed at night for 21 days, like you mentioned before? Oh yeah, well, don't do it over your bed. That's crazy. You mean next to your bed on your nightstand or something like that? Yes, you can still do stuff like that because that was ancestor stuff. That's different. Um, I'm talking about like you're trying to, conjure, I don't know, shacks from the Goetia or something. Yeah, you don't want to go down that road just yet. Your ancestors is one thing, but you're not ready to conjure anything like a Goetic spirit or even an elemental or anything like that. I would wait for that sort of stuff. All right, all right. We have reached the end. We have reached the end. Thank you guys for hanging out over the last hour and a half. It was fantastic. It was fun. This is a great text. I love the Conjure Codex series, so I can't wait to continue. Next week should be great. Goetic Doll Babies, as Venom said. This is going to be a fun sub chapter to dive into. Uh oh. Look at that. What does that say? Whoa. We're going to get into it next week. next week. So come back next week, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time is when we're going to get started. Eastern Time,
If I
9:30.
remember that it's Tuesday.
It's okay. That's okay. It's all right, man. You got a whole family and a career and all that, so it is completely understandable. But I do want to thank you for taking time out of your evening to elucidate with us and read through these texts. It's always fun. I appreciate you. And if you guys aren't already following Venom, please give him a follow. As you can tell, he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the occult, especially if you're interested in more of the folk style of occultism. So give Venom a follow if you guys aren't already following him. Any final words from you, brother?
Thanks for having me up, and thanks to everyone that hung out with us.
Indeed, indeed. Good night, Issa. Thank you for being here and for your moderation services. And the same to you guys. Have a good evening. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will catch you guys in the next one. As always, seek the mysteries. Peace.